On June 25, 1968, a 22-year-old rookie from Riverside, California, stepped to the plate at Candlestick Park for his very first Major League at-bat. He hit a grand slam. It was the first time a player had done that in his debut since 1898. The crowd erupted. In the dugout, Willie Mays, already one of the greatest players in baseball history, watched and smiled. And that moment created a problem. Because almost immediately, writers began calling the young rookie the next Willie Mays. The player was Bobby Lee Bonds. Over the next 14 seasons, Bonds would become one of the most dynamic players the game had ever seen. He combined speed and power in ways baseball had rarely witnessed before. By modern sabermetric standards, his numbers place him comfortably in the Hall of Fame conversation. But today, Bobby Bonds is mostly remembered for something else. He's remembered as Barry Bonds' father, a once dominant player who died at just 57 years old, nearly forgotten after the final years of his career were spent bouncing from team to team. This is the story of Bobby Bonds, and how baseball quietly allowed one of its most unique stars to fade from history. Before discussing the controversy that followed him, it's important to understand just how extraordinary Bobby Bonds actually was. He became the first player in Major League history to record multiple 30-home run, 30 stolen base seasons. And he didn't stop at 2. He finished his career with 5 30-30 seasons, something no one had ever done before. He was also the second player in baseball history to reach both 300 home runs and 300 stolen bases, joining Willie Mays, the very player he had been compared to since his debut. From 1969 through 1973, Bonds ranked among the National League leaders in nearly every major offensive category: runs scored, extra base hits, stolen bases, total bases. His name appeared near the top of the leaderboard year after year. He was a 3-time All-Star, a 3-time Gold Glove winner, a right fielder with a powerful arm, elite speed, and game-changing power. By modern metrics, he accumulated about 58 career wins above replacement, placing him among the most valuable position players of his era. And yet, when he appeared on the Hall of Fame ballot, he received almost no support. Part of the reason traces back to the comparison that followed him from the beginning. The next Willie Mays. Willie Mays wasn't just a great player. He was one of the most complete players the sport had ever seen. Expecting anyone to live up to that standard was impossible. But once that label existed, everything Bobby Bonds did was judged against it. If he struck out too often, critics mentioned it. If he didn't win MVP awards, it was viewed as a disappointment, even though he was doing things no one in baseball had ever done before. And while Bonds was redefining the combination of speed and power on the field, another issue was quietly beginning to shape the rest of his career: alcohol. Bonds had grown up around alcoholism. His father struggled with it, and by the time Bobby reached the major leagues, he had begun developing the same problem. By the early 1970s, his drinking was becoming noticeable around the clubhouse and on team flights. At the same time, he was playing the best baseball of his life. In 1973, he hit 39 home runs and stole 43 bases, producing one of the most remarkable seasons any outfielder had delivered at that time. But front offices were becoming concerned. Instead of confronting the issue or helping him manage it, teams chose a simpler solution. They traded him again and again and again. As the years passed, Bobby Bonds became one of the most traveled players in baseball. Within a short span, he was traded 6 times, eventually playing for 8 different teams. At one point, a lyric in Terry Cashman's song "Talkin' Baseball" joked, "And Bobby Bonds can play for everyone." It sounded funny, but behind that joke was a harsh reality. Teams quietly blamed Bonds' drinking for the constant movement. Yet during the 1970s, Major League Baseball had almost no systems in place to deal with addiction. There were no organized treatment programs and little understanding of alcoholism as a disease. Instead, clubs simply moved the problem somewhere else. Despite the instability, Bonds continued to produce. In 1977, with the California Angels, at age 32, he played 158 games, scored 103 runs, hit 37 home runs, drove in 115 runs, and stole 41 bases. Even while being traded repeatedly and dealing with personal struggles, he remained an elite player. But public perception had already shifted. Another factor contributed to that perception: strikeouts. In 1969, Bonds set a major league record with 187 strikeouts, then broke it the following year with 189. At the time, strikeouts were viewed very differently than they are today. A player who struck out frequently was seen as undisciplined or careless. What wasn't fully appreciated was the aggressive offensive approach that also produced his extraordinary combination of home runs and stolen bases. Modern baseball celebrates that style of player. In Bobby Bonds' era, it was criticized. There was another element that shaped how he was perceived: his personality. Bonds was known for being intense and sometimes distant with reporters. Inside the clubhouse, he was respected by teammates, but he wasn't always comfortable with the media attention that followed him. During the 1970s, sports writers had enormous influence over a player's reputation. Their perception often shaped award voting, public narratives, and eventually Hall of Fame discussions. Meanwhile, another shadow continued to grow: his son. Barry Bonds would eventually become the most statistically dominant hitter baseball had ever seen. When fans hear the name Bonds, they think of home run records, MVP awards, and the controversy surrounding Barry's career. Later in life, Bobby Bonds confronted the addiction that had followed him for decades. He joined Alcoholics Anonymous and achieved sobriety, eventually returning to baseball as a coach. He and Barry grew closer during those years. In 2003, after battling lung cancer and a brain tumor, Bobby Bonds died at the age of 57. He lived long enough to watch his son become a legend, but not long enough to see the full appreciation of his own career. Bobby Bonds was not just a talented player who fell short of expectations. He was one of the most complete outfielders of his generation. And the real story isn't what Bobby Bonds failed to become. The real story is how long it took baseball to realize what he already was: